I've been having a lot of fun playing Storybook and streaming it here on the channel. I know there's a lot of new people checking it out every day, so I wanted to make a quick video for those of you fresh to Storybook. Maybe you've played an auto chess style game before, or maybe this is your first one, but you've loaded up the game, you've played a couple matches, now you're wondering how to consistently get those juicy top 4s. Well, I have the advice that you need. No fluff, we're going quick, 5 beginner tips, let's go. Tip number 1, don't roll so much. I'm guilty of it. You're guilty of it. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's wrong. It's almost always going to be worth it to buy the strongest characters in your shop, even if they're not synergistic with what you have. Spending money to roll in the early game before you have any reason to is wasting resources that could be putting stats on your board and protecting your health for later when you need to use it. I know you don't want to buy Black Cat and Happy Little Tree together, but do it. It's worth more than what the roll would have cost you. And this extends to mid and late game as well. Don't ignore strong characters just because they don't fit in whatever comp you think you're building on turn 5, because you're not. Be the player that buys their strongest shop and spell combo, and not the player that plays 10 games to get 7th place 9 times and high roll once. Don't be a high roll warrior. Tip number 2, don't sell if you don't need to / build economy. If you have a full board and an empty hand, you should not be selling to buy new characters. Buy your strongest board with the gold that you have and lock if you need to. Try to fill your hand first. Don't sell your characters as soon as you decide you don't need them. Don't ditch a double as soon as your comp shifts in a different direction. You want to build economy by having extra characters in your hand you can sell for gold at a later turn. This allows you to have a way to fund your rolling when you really need it, not in the early game when you have no reason to be scrolling through the shop. You're leaving so much mid to late game value on the table if you have your hand empty and you're not building any economy. It's not worth it, and you're only hurting yourself by wasting other resources like your health. Don't go to sell hell when you could be holding the extra minions for a possible triple or funding these roll downs after you level up, like in the next tip. Tip number 3. Keep track of your level. Since leveling happens automatically throughout the match, when you first start out, you might not think about it. You just go along, and when powerful characters are in your shop, you're like, oh wow, how did this get there? But that's bad. Don't do that. Your level is important, and you should be aware of it. Your level dictates when those powerful characters are in your shop. You should also be aware of other players' levels, so you can know if anyone in your lobby is power leveling, and get some insight into what builds might be off the table. Like, if you see a Gwen with an upgraded adventurer getting to level 4 2 turns early, you know royals are probably not worth your time, and you can look at other competing builds. Builds we're going to be making videos on here in the forest, so hit subscribe to know when those are coming. You should plan your economy around leveling. If you have that full hand saved up from the earlier tips, and then you wait till you level to sell or do any rolling, you're going to be in a great position to fill your board with strong minions and treasure. Nobody wants to sell their hand to buy a tier 3 character and look down and see they're leveling to 5 next turn. Don't do that. Don't be a level devil. Tip number 4. Don't commit to a comp until you have a win condition / be flexible. This is a combo of the previous tips. One of your biggest mistakes you can make is committing to a comp without any kind of win condition. Like, you think if you have 4 animals and a vulture, you're doing animals now. But if you're rolling past tier 5, tier 6 minions for every comp because you're trying to get the good boy that's already sold out, you are putting the cart before the horse. Even if your build is 80% done, don't be afraid to buy a different build's tier 6 and build into it. Don't fall into sunk cost fallacy. Everyone is buying from the same shop, so you have to be flexible. Playing your strongest shops and holding economy until you have a direction for your final board is fundamental to increasing your skill in general. Trying to force comps might get you higher placements early on, but it will severely stunt your growth once you get into higher levels with players that have learned these things. Don't be a comp commie. Be flexible. That brings us to our last tip. Tip number 5, which is definitely not the lastly most important tip. Tip 5. Health is a resource to use. Winning at 10 health is the same as winning at 40 health, other than bragging rights. Health is a resource you can use in conjunction with your economy to get farther in your matches. Don't be afraid to take a few hits to save some economy for a higher roll down. Don't base every decision you make on whether or not you're going to lose health that turn. Think about the game as a whole and view it long term. This doesn't mean just tanking fights from the start of the game and being at 8 health on turn 6. This means not being afraid to lose a fight or two to recomp your board when you find a different tier 6 or a treasure that you want to build around. You can can use your health as a resource that allows you the room to rebuild your board more powerful than it was before. I want you to win, but I want you to do it at like 9 health, because that's where the real winners are. So do it. Be a 9 is fine type of player. That brings us to the end. These tips are more like fundamentals I want you to think about as you start out in Storybook. I'm trying to give you general guidelines to keep in mind that will provide you with the right mindset going forward to get better at the game, because that's what I'm doing. I'm out here just getting better at the game every day. If you want to follow that journey or get more tips like this, you can subscribe to the channel here and get notified when we go live or when a new video comes out. I'll see you on the boards.